Maybe we should have waited and did like a pre-production just so we know what we're doing in this thing.
Right? Yeah, we should have just a little chat first.
Yeah. Oh well, we'll just wing it like we always
Yeah,
do.
yeah, we're pretty good at that, or at least I think we're pretty good at that.
I
So
think so too. Last time we did something was it Llama Palooza
yeah, it was that.
or
What was
Llamageddon? Llamageddon.
Llamageddon. Yeah, that's what it was. I was like, it's been a while.
Yeah. That was
Yeah.
that was great. I showed my daughter that movie. She thought it was weird.
So ridiculous. Have you seen Slaughterhouse?
No, I've never even heard of it.
Okay, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a slasher film starring a sloth.
Oh, great. So it takes forever.
Yeah, well, you'd think that, but not really. Yeah, I won't spoil it for you. It's very, very funny. It's a very, very well done,
Okay.
funny, like horror
Campy.
comedy. Yeah, very campy, absolutely ridiculous. So you should check that one out. I think it might be available like on demand now or something, or maybe it might
Okay.
be on Shudder even. But it had like a very limited theater run of like a couple of days in very limited theaters. So I was pretty lucky I actually got to see it. But
Did you see it in IMAX?
no,
Oh,
it
okay.
would have been amazing in IMAX. I wish it was like that campy 3D. I wish it had been a 3D because that would have been like the best. But
Yeah. I miss those old 3D days, the terrible 3D red blue
Yeah.
glasses.
okay, so why can't I see you? Why can I only see your avatar?
Really? Hold
How
on.
do I fix that? Can you see me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Hold on, let me look.
I mean, it's not a huge deal if I can't see you. It's just easier to talk to you if I can see you.
I look really like pale too. What the hell?
I mean, it's spooky season, so I figured you were just getting into it.
Hold on, let me see what's going on here. I don't know. Can you see me now? I can see myself.
No, I can still only see your avatar. But I mean, we can just go for it. Maybe it's something on my end. Maybe I need to click something. What is together mode?
That's side by side, I believe.
Let me click that.
No, that's just gonna put
that's
my
giving me
avatar.
something. That's giving me something else.
Oh, okay. Click on view, and then and click on show me on the call screen, and then both of us will pop up.
Okay, let's see.
I don't know why my camera's on. I can see me. I don't want to see me. How do I turn myself off?
I know, like, how do I turn off my screen and only show you? See, now it has us both stacked, but it's still only showing me your avatar. So I don't know.
Right. I'm going to the camera. Hold on. Yeah, FaceTime. My camera's on. I don't know how to. Hold on.
I'm just gonna crack open a beer here.
I turn my camera off and turn it back on.
Oh, there you are.
Oh, okay,
Yep,
good.
I got you now.
Right on. What are you drinking right now?
I just opened it's Digital Black from
Oh, nice.
Peace City Brewing. It's their double dry hopped hazy IPA, so I'm going hard this morning.
Oh, I got a hazy IPA as well. This one is called 988. It's what's the word? It I guess promotes, but also it donates to the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline.
Oh, that's really cool. Where's that from?
Well, this one was brewed by Dark Sky Brewing out of Flagstaff, but it's an initiative started by Oso Brewing out of Phoenix, and they started it like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, and every year around this time, because I think October 11th is Mental Health Awareness Day or something like that.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And so, yeah, so they put it out about this time. I think it's always a different beer every year. This time it's a hazy IPA, hopped with Strata and Idaho hops. So.
Well, that's really cool. I love beers that support a good cause as well. So.
Oh yeah. All right, so let me pour mine. Now we're talking about The Exorcist here. We're gonna kind of span the whole series, kind of sum up a bunch of the the old ones, and then talk about the new one a little bit. What was your first initial reaction or feelings about the new one, Exorcist Believer?
Um, I think that this movie is getting a lot of hate online and on TikTok and on Rotten Tomatoes, but I didn't think it was like worth all of this hate. Like I enjoyed it. It was pretty entertaining. I have some issues with it. I have
Yeah.
some nitpicks.
Oh, so do I. So do I. I
But
liked it too.
I didn't think it was awful. Like everybody's saying this
Nope.
is like the worst horror movie they've ever seen, and I think they're overreacting.
No, I got all sorts of feels from it. I felt, I got scared, jump scared, creeped out. Even like, uh, um, well, with the some of the old coming back, bringing back the old, character, and some of those feels and the because ever since I've been a parent, every time they do some like parent kid type interactions, it hits me
Yeah.
a little bit differently. So
Yeah. For sure.
I got a little emotional in some parts, and it took me for a ride. I was widely entertained. This is the sequel that the original deserved.
Yeah, I think so. And I think if I hadn't gone through the steps of rewatching all of the movies, that I
Hmm.
might not have appreciated this one as much because I kind of forgot how bad uh the Heretic
Yeah,
and what is the title of the third one?
just Exorcist 3.
Exorcist 3. So yeah, I
Hmm.
had forgotten like, oh man, I don't know what I kind of romanticized those in my head or something because I thought they were much better movies than they actually are.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the rewatch made me appreciate this movie even more, I think. Um I think there are too many people in this movie.
Okay. Yeah.
The cast of this movie is way too large for you to get any sort of character development for all of the characters.
Yeah. I think the dad and the daughter
Mhm.
was the main relationship, and they probably just should have stuck with that. I don't know.
Angela and I can't remember what the dad's name in the Angela and is it David? I can't remember. I can't
Nah,
remember what the dad's name is.
I just keep
Um,
coming up with Aaron Burr.
yeah, but you have like they're the main characters, so obviously we get the most character development for them.
Hmm.
But then we add this second girl in there who's also possessed and she's the friend. And then we have her parents and her siblings and their priest from their church. And then the priest from the Catholic Church, and then the root worker, and then the neighbor. And, I think like I understand what they were trying to do with that,
Hmm.
because um, the face of religion has very much changed in the United States since the original movie came out, where, you know, uh, it was more traditional. Like there were a lot more people who were Catholic or identified as very specific types of Christian, and now there are a lot of people who are just spiritual or atheist, or I think like the
Hmm.
largest growing group or fastest growing group of people in the United States are people who just identify as like non-religious but spiritual in some way.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
No, I get that.
I get
I
what they were trying to do there, but I think there were just too many people to sort of explore that fully. Like this movie needed another hour if they were going to fully delve into all
Yeah,
that.
and the Ellen Bernstein's character. Spoiler alert: we're gonna have a lot of spoilers here, so if you haven't seen it, you might want to wait. So Ellen Bernstein comes back as Chris McNeil, and she starts talking about. She wrote a book. In this timeline, she wrote a book after the first episode or the first movie,
Right. Yeah.
and she said that she delved into exorcism rituals from other religions, Muslim and whatnot. But then they never really explored that either. I kind of wanted them to talk or show like what that meant,
Yeah.
like what kind of rituals they do. I'm sure like they were in Haiti. I'm waiting for some voodoo stuff to happen too. I thought the root lady was going to be voodoo, but turns out
Yeah.
she was just a different branch of Christianity.
Yeah. That was they didn't really explain what root work is, and I
That too,
had to
yeah.
go like really look things up because I didn't want to get that wrong or like
Yeah.
misunderstand what it was. But they did do like I guess that was a voodoo blessing or something that she got on the baby before the earthquake happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and her husband asks her, he's like, "Oh, you believe in all this stuff?" And she's like, "Well, yeah." And then they go into the Christian church and they sit down and he's going to take photos or whatever.
Yeah.
And we're just getting like a lot of mixed religious imagery and not really like explaining any one thing very well.
Yeah. And where did the what do you call it? The voodoo blessing come in? Like I thought that was gonna play a part later on, but it never really did.
Yeah, I thought that they were going to tie that back in,
Mm-hmm.
at the end where like, the demon couldn't fully take hold of her or something, I
Yeah.
thought they were going to bring that back, but they didn't really bring that back. So this movie felt like there were a lot of loose threads.
Yeah. True. But overall, I mean, I was very pleased with the movie. I liked it. I did like the reveal at the end when the demon speaking through the daughter. Oh, by the way, the dad's name was Victor.
Victor, there we go, Victor.
Yeah. But when his daughter Angela, the demon speaking through Angela, revealed that he actually chose for the wife to survive and not her. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
shit, that hit me hard. I'm like, oh, I didn't even expect that. I love that part.
That was really sad too.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Like,
one of the.
really sad.
Yeah, that's one of the parts that got me emotional. I was like, oh fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, really, really sad. I think, honestly, I thought this was going to be way worse
Hmm.
in terms of imagery and what they did. So I went to see the original. They had the 50th anniversary showing of it, in theaters like a couple weeks ago, and
Okay.
I did go to see that, and so it was fresh in my mind going to see this one, and I thought this one felt kind of toned down as far as the language and the like gross, creepy demon sexual content. They're like, "Oh, no,
Yeah.
we're not doing that. We cannot do that." And where the demon as Reagan is like constantly saying sexual things to the priests and everything,
Yeah.
and they're and it is very problematic. It's like,
Yeah.
oh God, this is awful. So
Well,
yeah, obviously they weren't going to do that.
when I was reading on the history of The Exorcist, I mean, they actually asked Linda Blair if she knew what masturbating was, and she's like, "Oh, you mean jerking off?" It's like she knew,
Yeah,
like it wasn't a big deal to her, but like she was 12. Like who asked that of a 12-year-old?
yeah, yeah. Um,
But
yeah,
it's
and then
1973, right?
right, 1973. Yeah. So obviously they left some of that out, but I thought some of the scenes were gonna be worse. Like
Mm-hmm.
the scene with the other little girl. What is her name? Catherine?
Yeah, Catherine.
In the church. I thought her outburst in the church was gonna be way worse than it was. And that scene made me feel so tense, just like
Mm-hmm.
sweating and tense because it's so unpredictable and there's all these people around and you don't know how they're going to react and you don't know what she's going to do.
Yeah, I thought she was
uh,
gonna call out somebody for transgressions and stuff like that, and just make it really
I
awkward.
definitely thought that's where that was going. And with her father, her dad was like, he was the weakest link character.
Yeah.
There always has to be one,
Mm-hmm.
and he was the weakest link character in this, which plays into the ending, right? But I thought that there was also going to be some sort of implied sexual abuse by him
Some
or
revelation,
something.
yeah.
Yeah, because of the things he kept saying about being weak and his sin making him weak and stuff like that. I thought that that's where that was going, but there was never any. I don't know if that's what was intended
Mm-hmm.
or
It could
not.
have been.
I don't know if I was supposed to read that into it or not.
Yeah, well, I was waiting for the payoff on that. Maybe just one or two lines or a discussion between him and the wife at some
Yeah,
point.
something. Or like, oh, maybe he had an affair or, something.
Yeah.
Or him to get called out by the demon for some,
Hmm.
I thought he was going to get called out by the demon as his daughter, and that just never occurred. So
It
I don't know.
it could be on the cutting room floor though as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I wonder if there will be like an extended director's cut of this movie.
Hmm.
I think it's not doing well.
Yeah, that's odd to me. Yeah, when I went, I granted I saw it on IMAX because it was just a timing. It's not like I wanted to see it in IMAX. It was just a timing thing, and there was like maybe 15 people in the theater, and I don't get it. I thought it was good, but at the same time, with the whole writer strike, they really did put the kibosh on a lot of
Mhm.
promoting. So, and then it was supposed to come out on the 13th, and they had to move it because Taylor Swift's movie's coming out on the 13th.
Right.
No, they really did. That is true. A lot of movies or
That's
a couple movies
hilarious.
got switched because they don't want to go up against Taylor.
Right, that's fair. That's valid.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to go up against Taylor Swift either.
But yeah, I don't know if it would have done better on the 13th because of the whole, spooky October 13th or Friday the 13th deal.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that I think that people maybe are because there are a lot of horror movies out right now.
There are, yes.
I know the
Yeah.
new Saw movie's doing really well.
I saw it.
And
It's gory though, and it's kind of boring in the beginning. It's more
is
like
it?
a
I
drama.
haven't seen it yet. I have like a whole different rant about the Saw franchise. It's not for this podcast. It's for a different one, I guess, because I have a whole list of issues like with those, and I did a whole watch through of those last year because I'd never seen them all,
Hmm.
and I was straight up not having a good time. So
Oh yeah,
yeah,
one was great. One was fucking perfect, and
right.
then
That's
it
where it needed to stop.
yes, right. And James Wan is a genius because then after that he went to Insidious, and then he went
Mhm.
to The Conjuring, and then like I mean now he's
Yeah,
directing Aquaman. I saw the preview. I'm like, holy shit, James Wan is directing Aquaman.
yeah. It's like such a switch up for him, but I'm here for it. Good for him. But yeah,
Yeah,
I think that as far as this movie goes, like the other thing people are complaining a lot about is the pacing of the movie
there
being really
was
slow and then the exorcism being really short. But that's
yeah
exactly on par. If this is a reboot and it's intended as a 3-film reboot of the original Exorcist trilogy,
hmm
then I feel like the pacing was spot on because the
yes
pacing is exactly like the original. The exorcism is the smallest part of the first or the original film.
yeah
It's the
the
smallest part.
first
Like, it doesn't even last that long.
yeah the first like 30 minutes 25-30 minutes of the movie is just drags and it's like boring and it doesn't really start until Reagan pees on the carpet during the
Yeah.
party
Yeah.
and otherwise it's like oh man like it was torturous. Like I started jumping on my phone, fucking around on my phone when I was watching it because I watched it at home and I
Okay,
was
so
just
did
like
you watch the original cut or the director's cut?
no, I watched the original cut. I couldn't find the director's cut. I found the original cut for free, so that's why I went with that.
Yeah, I think honestly I prefer the original cut to the director's cut. I saw the director's cut in the theater,
Yeah.
and the only thing about so funny story. So the first time I saw the director's cut, I'd only ever seen the original cut, and I went with my brother to see it in the theater for a different anniversary. This was more than 10 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, for whichever anniversary of The Exorcist it was where they were showing it in theaters. And we went, and I had never seen the scene where Reagan crawls backwards down the stairs.
Oh yeah, the spider
Because,
crawl scene.
yeah, the spider crawl scene, I had never seen that because that's in the director's cut, not in
Hmm.
the original cut of the film.
Right.
And I came all the way out of my chair. Like, I was so unprepared for that because it's a movie I had seen a million times. And, they cut in the little flashes of Pazuzu's face
Hmm.
in the director's cut, but that wasn't that scary. It was just like, oh, okay, that's different. But when she crawls backwards down the stairs, like I jumped up out of my seat. I was like shocked. Like I almost ran out. Like I was just stunned. I was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
And the people in the theater were laughing at me because they were like, okay, that bitch is scared. I was like, yes, I am scared.
There's that scene, and then there's the scene where the blood squirting out of the needle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like shooting out of her neck.
Yeah, that's what people said. Line. Yeah, people said that was the most disturbing scene out of the whole movie. A lot of people did back in the 70s.
Yeah.
More so than the crucifix scene or the spider crawl scene. I went back and I read like a lot of stuff on, like Jack Nicholson was slated to be playing it.
That would have been a very different movie, I think.
Yeah.
If he had been in it.
I think it was good. I like the relatively unknowns, even though Max von Sydow had been around in a while. He played Father Merrin, using what's his name, Wilson, or I forgot his name, but his father Karras, Jason Miller. That's it, Jason Miller. I thought he was good too.
Yeah, but as far as like just tying that back into Believer, I think that like the pacing is spot on with the original movie. So I think if people have a problem with the pacing, maybe they need to go back and like check out the original source material because it's pretty close.
There were some scenes, like especially with Chris McNeil kind of explaining everything, that went really quick. It was like more like, here, let me tell you what the movie was saying. Let me tell you what you need to know, rather than showing us what we needed to know. But then again, like you said, pacing, they really had to speed it up right there. And there was a couple other scenes that were very heavy-handed as far as the narrative was, without having a narrator involved, which I didn't care for personally, but they really needed it because they needed to get that thing going.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we gotta pick this up a little bit. How did you feel about bringing the original characters in for, like, I almost felt like it was kind of a cheesy cameo type situation, like there was no reason for her to really be there.
Like it was a gimmick.
Yeah, and there was definitely no reason for the end scene where Linda Blair comes in, other than just like the wholesome moment of, hey, got back together with my mom.
Yeah, I think they did that on purpose because of the whole, the creepiness of the movie itself, and then they wanted people to feel good at the end, and it was a really good feel good moment. I feel like it's the movie house, so the producers wanted that.
Yeah, I don't want to feel good at the end of the horror movie. I don't want to feel good.
Right? No, especially if it's going to be a trilogy. Wait till the very end of the trilogy to make us feel good.
Yeah, it's like, let's feel good at the very end. Yeah.
Can you believe this was produced by Danny McBride?
That is so weird, right?
Yes. I was shocked. I saw his name. I'm like, wait a minute. And I had to look it up. I'm like, holy shit. First off, good for him, because I do like him as an actor. Now he's, making some money off movies. And I don't know why this. I looked at on Friday. It made 11 million. I don't know what it made on Saturday or Sunday. They haven't posted those numbers yet.
Yeah.
But
I honestly do hope it does well enough to go ahead and like kick off the actual trilogy that was planned, because I do want to see where they're going to go next with the story. The Exorcist, the Heretic follows Reagan into the next film. Are we going to follow Angela into the next film, or are we going to get a different story?
Yeah, let's talk about Heretic for a second. Oh man.
This movie is a mess. The best part of this movie is the tap dancing. Yeah,
and she's supposed to be 16 and she's got no bra on. I saw that immediately.
The way that they just sexualized the hell out of Linda Blair in this movie is so, looking back, cringe. This is like very cringe-worthy. It's like, wow, this is inappropriate.
I thought so too. That was the first thing that stuck out. I'm like, should I even be watching this?
It really stands out. It feels very, very inappropriate.
Right. And then the whole weird thing where she's in she's at a psychiatrist's office. Does she work there too? I don't understand the whole thing. Like, I know and what kind of psychiatry office is that? It looks like a house of mirrors or like a newspaper editing room.
Glass offices, and that's not even mentioning like the really bizarre what did they call it? The synchronizer or something? What was it called?
Oh, I was going to mention that.
Yeah. Where you can like synchronize brain waves. And I know that sort of like psychic ability and telekinesis and things were like super hot topics at that time. You know, there were so many books that included that, like Stephen King had it in a bunch of his books, Firestarter.
Oh yeah.
People were kind of obsessed with that, like powers of the human mind type of thing. So I understand why they did that, but I feel like it would have been a better movie had they just stuck with real science instead of trying to make this like, now we can go back and see Reagan's dreams.
Or how about just another possession of some kind? It doesn't have to be Reagan. It could have been one of the little kids in the psychiatric ward.
Yeah, they could have gone anywhere with that. That was the direction that they chose. And then they have her living with a caregiver instead of with her mom, and they don't explain why she wasn't in the film.
They one sentence is like, your mom's out like filming something or something like that.
You got to do acting, so you're here living in the psych ward.
Right. In the backstory, or the real world, she just didn't want to be in a part of the film. She was just like, nope, don't want to do it.
And honestly, you can't say I blame her, because it was not a good script.
But yeah, I mean, you look at the cast, everyone who's in it. I mean, you have Linda Blair coming back, then you have Richard Burton, who was big at the time.
That's true. Yeah.
Louise Fletcher just won an Academy Award for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest as Nurse Ratched. Max von Sydow comes back. Kitty Wynn comes back. She's the caretaker. James Earl Jones and Ned Beatty. I'm like, okay, fucking sign me up. Let's go watch this. But then you see the travesty that unfolded. You're like, what the fuck? What are they doing in Africa?
There were so many. I mean, problematic is not a strong enough word for like the scenes in Africa and what they did with that. Like it was just, and also they didn't really make it make sense. So you have to go look up, and I can't imagine at the time this movie came out trying to go look up Pazuzu and figure out what was going on in this movie, since there was no Google.
Yeah, but
if I had to go to the library and look up Pazuzu, I never would.
Right. Yeah, Pazuzu was, but Pazuzu was like what, Babylonian or Mesopotamian or something like that.
Yeah, and so he's like a wind god, and then they have this other opposing. I could get my notes and look at this, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
I wrote all this down because I was being so nitpicky with this movie too. I was like writing everything. I have so many angry notes about this movie. But yeah, so he's like god of the wind, and or demon of the wind, or whatever, like in control of the wind. And yeah, then you have this like little thing where they're like, now we're back in the past, and yeah.
And then the dream world, and Richard Burton trying to climb a cliff was fucking hilarious. I'm like, this guy is totally on a lift. He's not even trying. He's got no upper body strength, and he's climbing up a rope. Oh my god. That was so great.
You're like, guys, this is not believable at all.
Oh shit.
And I think they actually filmed that like horizontally, like he's just on the ground pulling himself on like a cart, like a wheel cart thing.
Like Batman?
Yeah. So
I believe it.
Yeah, and I think that's what it was. Just terrible. Just terrible.
When I first heard because they don't say Pazuzu in the first one, then they say it in the second one a lot, and it reminds me of a Treehouse of Horror on The Simpsons, where they spoof The Exorcist, and they give Maggie a idol of Pazuzu, and then and Lisa goes, "Oh, you're the god of the southwest winds. You're not even good enough to be the god of the south wind or the west wind." Making fun of the direction,
right? Just making fun of the demon. And there's a quote there's a Futurama episode that uses Pazuzu as well, and
oh really?
He's like the professor's gargoyle that sits outside the office, but also the professor's pet. And he runs away. So through the entire movie, I just kept going, Pazuzu! Because I had like that Futurama episode. I'm a huge Futurama fan, so it was just in my head the whole time. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I watched a lot of the old ones, but I haven't seen any of the newer ones. So I do love
they're
the
pretty
humor.
good. They're pretty good. They are. They're still funny, and they're more topical, to
Hmm.
things that are going on now. But yeah.
What was there even a possession in Exorcist the Heretic?
No, no, they showed us like previous possessions. They showed
Yeah.
us like, okay, here is your backstory and stuff. It's like where they were going with that. But
Yeah, they show
there wasn't
Kokomo.
like, yeah, there was like, oh, well, now we're just using psychiatry. We're using this crazy brain synchronizer thing to like
Hmm.
make people believe that possession is real. I don't know. I don't know. It was terrible.
Yeah, and then there was the POV of the locust. You're flying around as a locust. It's like, this is
Oh,
garbage.
I think that was probably at the time super innovative film
Mm,
work,
could be.
but it's so bad. It didn't hold up well. Yeah,
No, it didn't.
so bad.
But then we go to The Exorcist 3, which was not a bad movie.
That one is so much better.
Yeah.
I was really like, it's okay, so there were a lot of things that I didn't remember about this movie. One of them being just how many like kind of anti-Semitic jokes there are in this movie.
Yeah. There are a lot.
I was like, okay, so we jumped from being shitty about Africa to being shitty about Jewish people. This is not good. I think if they don't add anything to the plot, so I think you could do a cut of this movie where you just like redub over all of that in it as something else,
Hmm.
and or just cut those lines, like the crazy mom or whoever it is, mother-in-law who just
Oh, that's right. But aren't they? I think aren't they Jewish though?
yeah, but she says the dumbest shit, and it's like, ma'am, please do not. And yeah, I think, but if you just dubbed over those lines as some other joke, it wouldn't make any difference to the film, and
That's true. Yeah.
it would make it easier to watch in modern context.
And George C. Scott like yelling every third line really is off-putting.
Yeah, that's very weird.
He like turns it up to 11,
Yeah, yeah, it's like we need you to bring it down a notch.
pounding the table, and then he sees that old lady, the one with the telephone or the radio,
Mm-hmm.
and she goes, "Oh, you have a nice face, or you have a kind face." Like he just yelled at the nurse like in the other room.
Yeah.
What the-
Yeah, it's like no, he doesn't. No,
yeah.
he's the worst. But yeah, that movie is probably, I mean, it's way better than Heretic
Mhm.
for sure.
And there's an actual possession. They bring Father Karras back. Well, his persona, I guess it's Zombie Karras.
Yeah,
Who's
it's like zombie demon Karis is back.
But the Brad Dourif as the Gemini killer was really good. I
Yeah,
liked his.
yeah, he was really good. But I did think that was sort of a weird. It's a very weird tie-in of
Mhm.
being like, hey guys, we're doing Zodiac, but we're not gonna say Zodiac.
Right.
We're gonna say the Gemini killer. And yeah, but that
Yeah.
movie, it's much more fleshed out as far as like the plot goes, and it's
Mhm.
a lot easier to follow.
Yep.
Heretic, you kind of lose what the plot of the movie is about a third of the way through, and
Yeah.
it's just confusing. But this one you can actually follow in a more linear sense. You get a
Right.
little more about what Pazuzu is, and
Yeah. Well, they brought back William Peter Blatty. That's why he wrote the first one, and he wrote and directed part 3. So it was a little bit more in tune with the first one, because the second one was just out of sorts. They could have
yeah,
done away with it.
yeah. So what did you think of the ending of the third one?
I thought it was okay. I would have preferred had maybe, I don't know. I guess what I read later is they had to add an exorcism into it. You know, they had to have the priest there and all that. I think
Yeah.
they might have been able to do it without a priest, and just had what's his name, Lieutenant God dang it, what is his name, Lieutenant Kinnerman.
Yeah, I was like, I'm so bad with names. I should be
That's why
referring to
that's
notes.
why I wrote them all down. They could have had him try to like appeal to the good side, to the father, rather than
Yeah,
doing an exorcism and then have him be able to come out and fight from within. That might have been kind of fucking cool.
yeah, but yeah, the studio made them add that in there, right? That
Yeah.
wasn't originally in there, and yeah, so it I felt like it did feel kind of out of place, but
And
even
then
with
all
that, it's still way better than the second one.
yeah. And all the lightning bolts that went through the floor, I didn't understand why they had to do that.
Oh, yeah, I think they just wanted to use that effect, honestly. I really think that's what it was. Like, we know how to do a really cool special effect. Let's use it.
Check this
Just
out.
find a way to use it, you know. I can picture the director being like, just find a way to use it. Figure it
Right.
out. And, you know,
We
so
already
they
paid for it.
yeah, so they just tack it on in there. But, you know, so having those three, I kind of wish that I had watched the two prequels.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that I never watched the two prequels, if I'm
Oh,
being they were not good. But I wish that I had watched one of the two prequels before like The Exorcist, so I was seeing it in timeline order, not in release order, which is how I did watch them in release order. So
the idea of a prequel to see how Father Merrin gained his chops is great. I thought that was a good concept, but the way they executed it was bad.
That could have been very cool, but unfortunately it wasn't, and they did it twice.
Yeah, well, they did it. Yeah, they did it once and then redid the first once, and then they re-released the first time, or released the first one.
Released the first, yeah, that whole thing. And I read about it. I went and read like why did they do this? Because I had no idea that this happened.
Me either.
I hadn't seen these. I was expecting two completely different movies. So when I watched the beginning and then watched Dominion, or maybe I have that backwards. But whichever one I watched first, I was like, okay, this is fine. It's the one that opens with them, like the scene with like all of the soldiers on upside down crosses.
Oh, that was Dominion.
Okay, so I watched that one first, and like they're swooping in, and I was like, okay, this movie is really weird and bad. And then I put the next one on, and I was so confused as to why it was the same movie but slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought it was going to be another like continuation of that prequel storyline, but it was just the same movie again.
Yeah, and I'm sure you read that they actually shot the movie. The studio wanted to redo some parts, and then the director that they got, who was Rennie Harlan, who's famed for doing all sorts of stuff, he actually ended up convincing the movie house to let him actually almost entirely reshoot the movie.
Yeah, which is insane.
Yeah, and that was the Exorcist, the beginning, because that was the one that came out first.
Right, the beginning.
Yeah, and then they ended up tanking in the box office because they spent $50 million and they made 78. So it didn't do as well as the first one, but it didn't lose money. But since it did so bad that first few months, they ended up having Paul Schrader, who's a good director in his own. He wrote Taxi Driver. They had him finish up his movie. They gave him like $30,000 to finish up his movie, and then he put his out, which also tanked too in the box office. Because I think everyone was confused. That was in 2004, 2005.
I can only imagine. So like the only thing that these movies are good for at this point is just like a film studies class, showing you how big a difference a different director can make.
That's a good point. That is a really good point.
That's the only thing these movies are good for. These are great for film studies classes, I think. And it's just such a weird situation. Like, when has this ever happened where you had basically the same movie made twice, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Both of those got a little weird and off the rails and very confusing.
Yeah, and again, back in Africa for some fucking reason.
Yeah.
They couldn't have, I don't know. It was just odd. And then I forgot which one. I'm so confused. I know one had what's that one? He had the idol, and then all of a sudden he just lost it. He put it down on the ground, and then it got blown over by sand. He couldn't find it anymore. It's like, what?
It's just gone.
Now it's gone for the
Like
ages.
you just lost your priceless artifact. I don't think so.
Shit.
Must be Satan.
Oh my God. It didn't. Yeah. Then
I
the other
hate
one.
when I put something down and Satan steals it. That's just the worst.
The one with God, where's Cheche.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
that was Dominion. I thought that was going somewhere, and then he turns out just to be a beautiful bald man. Like
Right. It's so confusing. Like they take this kid and they put this makeup on him to like emphasize his cheekbones, or like they tried to make him, they're like, we're gonna make this like conventionally attractive person look unattractive so that we can take all that off and make him attractive later. It's like She's All That, but with demons. They're like, take his glasses off and now he's hot.
Like, whoa.
Yeah, it's so weird.
Yeah, it is. And then he's all half naked at the end, and it's just
and he delivers this like speech that doesn't seem to make sense in the context of the movie, where he's like, I am perfection, and I'm like, I don't know where this is going.
Yeah, and he does that demon face for a second, and it's so bad.
Yeah, I love when they try to do like the cut-ins of the demon face. I feel like every time they do that in any of these movies, they should just use the original ones that were used in the director's cut of the original. They shouldn't be trying to remake the demon face, because they did it way worse. They were like demon face, but soft focus and still attractive. Make it soft focus. Yeah. It didn't. Those movies were a hot mess.
Yeah. They and according to my numbers, the box office for Dominion was only $251,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Everyone's just like, nope, don't want it. See ya.
Like, nope, I already saw it.
But I thought it was the better of the two.
I did too. Actually, I thought that was the better of the two movies as well. So, but you can't just like remake the same movie and release it. It was less than a year between the two. So yeah, that's just. I'm gonna start doing that with popular movies. I'm just gonna remake Barbie and release it like right after. Or just like find a movie that's coming out, remake it, and release it right after, and just see what happens.
I may have I may have mixed up the two with the intro, because the one from and now I'm totally confused. Which was the one where they're in the Danish village, or Danish or Dutch village, when they had the Germans? The guy said,
Yeah, because we didn't talk about the Nazis.
Yeah, and then then like later on in the movie, it was like the Father Merrin's second chance of doing the right thing. Remember?
Yeah, that was Dominion.
That was Dominion. Okay, then he actually took action when the British officer killed the little girl, right?
Yeah. So he kills the little African girl, and then he actually stands up. So that whole thing, I thought that was actually a good part of his backstory. That shows you how he got to like where he is, and what his moral compass is, and why he feels so guilty and conflicted, because they don't really make you think that he feels super guilty because a girl died during an exorcism that he did one time.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. And so when they give you that backstory of, he had to choose who lived and who died, and it was an awful thing that happened to him, that kind of gives you a little more context for who he is.
Yeah.
But it still felt out of place somehow in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an exorcism device.
Yeah. So it still felt out of place. Like, okay, well, now we know who he is as a person and why he does what he does. But it would have made more sense had that come out during an exorcism. Like, again, things a demon could use against you in an exorcism. That. But it never comes up. The demon's just like, we're going to leave the Nazi stuff alone.
I watched an online review of this, and the guy had made a good point. Like, it would have been a great movie had they said this had they not titled it Exorcist
Yeah.
and not have any of the Exorcist characters, change the characters' names, and then just put it out as a movie, it would have been a good movie. And no one would have judged it as in the lens of the Exorcist.
Yeah, and I think that that's spot on, because a lot of the problem of the movie is that it doesn't make sense in the context of like the Exorcist universe.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't make sense as like an Exorcist movie.
And I think that's probably the whole point of these new ones is they want to reestablish and take back the universe of The Exorcist so that it's more in line with the first one and worthy of the first one.
Yeah.
Never going to be the same.
Yeah, it's never going to be the same. You'll never get that original like shock value ever again.
Mm-mm. Nope.
Yeah, and it was very much a product of the time it was created in, and you can't replicate those things. But I mean, I did think that Believer did a good job as far as a reboot for the series that makes sense in 2023.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
Because if they had chosen to do just a Catholic story, I don't think it's as like it wouldn't have felt as modern, it wouldn't have felt as current if they had chosen to just do a Catholic priest and do the same. And we've seen that. We've seen it so many times in so many other movies. So at least it was a new approach. I just wish there had been more context and character development for everybody's individual spirituality in this, and showing you like, well, I don't know what the rites of exorcism are in a Pentecostal church. Which I'm assuming that the neighbor guy, was he Pentecostal? That was all very unclear.
I don't know. I know that the church scene, I was like, okay, I thought it was a Catholic church, but then why is the priest or the reverend or whoever's up there, pastor, why isn't he in the vestments? Why is he in a suit?
So I think that Catherine's family was Presbyterian. That's my guess. I don't know a whole lot, so somebody is going to come in your comment section and rip me apart here, but that's fine. They can, because I will admit that I don't know. I'm Catholic and I'm not very good at it.
Same.
So that's the one that I do have context for. That's the one that I do understand. But I think that Catherine's family was Presbyterian, ? And then you have Anne, who was like the nun that never was. And then she went into, a scientific field. And then you have the root worker who like, okay, so there's a lot that I don't understand about that. And I watched a lot of TikToks, which is not the way to learn about things. So I probably understand it less than after I watched the movie. And then I think the neighbor who was the boxer, the only thing I can think is that he was Pentecostal, but open to other religious practices.
Beliefs? Yeah.
Yeah, because like the only reason that I think he was Pentecostal is Victor. There's one line where he says, we kind of get freaked out when people start speaking in tongues. And I think that's a Pentecostal thing.
Okay.
And then the tambourine, I think that. So I'm sure somebody will come in and correct me if that's wrong. I like that they had the Catholic Church not sanction the exorcism.
Yes, that was good.
Because I think that's what would happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And but to that point, the priest still stayed outside, was praying, trying to, wish well. And then when Victor went out, said, "Hey, the fight's in there." I thought that was kind of funny.
Nobody yelled, "Don't touch them."
Later, not in the beginning.
So I think like they were saying, don't touch the girls. Like the root worker said, "Don't touch them." After we start, don't touch the girls. Like, don't touch them. And so the Catholic priest comes in, and I started to get a little mad. I started to get a little mad inside when he actually comes in, and I'm like, oh, okay, Mr. Big Shot over here thinks he's going to come in and just fucking fix everything.
I equated it to when Gandalf showed up in Lord of the Rings in the deep. Like, I was like, yes, the hero comes to save the day.
The hero is here. The Catholic priest. But, because I felt like I didn't want Catholicism to be painted as like the superior exorcist religion, you know.
Oh, that's a good point.
I was like immediately kind of irritated with that. And then he puts his hands on their foreheads and he's reading the rites, and nobody is like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be touching them. Hey, don't touch them. Nobody in the room says
and nobody
anything.
touched them in the first one. They don't touch Reagan.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was a little annoying that nobody was like, hey, bro, you might not want to. And then, you know, he dies a horrific death.
Hey, they brought back the turning the neck around thing.
That's true. That's true. And
that's the way I saw it.
Yeah, that was good. But the fact that they brought him in just to kill him off, he was like, okay, not important. Bye.
They brought back the projectile vomiting.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Even though she threw up into the air.
Yeah.
Onto the ceiling.
It was still the projectile vomiting, which I'm here for.
Yeah.
And they had the one girl like regurgitate some kind of a scary black mass onto the floor.
Like a tumor or an owl pellet or something.
Yeah, it looked like an owl pellet. It really did, which is something I didn't fully understand.
No, me neither.
But it looked cool, so I was fine with it. I was like, okay.
Yeah. And then to your point, the dad choosing his daughter over the other one. I'm like, oh, that's not going to fucking end well. But then they did the switcheroo on us. Mm-hmm. They pulled the whole switcheroo.
Yeah, because, the devil is a liar, and they always say that. In the first, throughout the series, that's the thing that is consistent, is that they say, don't listen to what the demon says. The demon's a liar. The demon will lie to you.
Yeah. Deceiver, right?
Yeah. So I think that it makes me kind of sad that they used this girl as like a plot device to save the other girl. I kind of wish that they had saved both girls.
Me too. I was hoping for that.
Thing that I was hoping for. I think they went all in on this idea that we all had to work together, and all of these different religions worked side by side and friends to create a community. So, we're not just relying on the power of God, we're relying on like the power of our relationships and
community.
Community. I liked that aspect of it.
Same.
I thought that was pretty cool, like more relatable way to deal with that than just having it be about religion and God. But I just wish that we had managed to, like, they had given us a way to save both girls. I don't know. Like, is she going to be the demon in the next one now? Is that going to come back?
It looked like they were trying to, or at least the mom and the dad. And let's talk about Jennifer Nettles was really good. I'm like, whoa, Sugarland.
Yeah, yes.
I didn't know it was her. Like, but I saw her name in the end credits. So, like, we stayed just in case there was something. And during mid credits, but we didn't stay till the end. And then I saw her name. I'm like, where have I fucking heard that name from? And I had to look it up. I'm like, oh shit, Sugarland. She was awesome. Yeah. She was really good in it.
Really, really scary. She was really scary in this. She did a good job.
But they wanted both Victor and I can't think of her character's name, but the mom wanted both their kids. They were strong. They were the strong ones. And then the dad comes in and punts everything.
Right.
But let me ask you this, because they didn't really show the girls doing the ritual. And what's her name couldn't bring her mom's scarf. Angela couldn't bring her mom's scarf, but Catherine bought those shoes. Whose shoes were those? Who was she trying to contact?
They never got into that. They never told us. And that's one of those like loose threads of character development that was really confusing, because they never told us who I was like assuming she was trying to contact a lost sibling.
Yeah, or cousin or...
Yeah, because I kind of thought, maybe this has something to do with the dad, and why the dad is so messed up is like maybe they lost, like she lost an older sister or something. She lost an older sibling, and then that's why the dad is the way he is.
Yeah, maybe.
But they never told us.
maybe he was reckless or careless and she got kidnapped, or maybe in a drunk
Yeah,
driver hit her or something, or
yeah, something. I think something happened there. So I don't know. Hopefully, if we are getting a second installment, they actually flesh that out for us. If these characters are involved,
see,
in the second installment in any way, hopefully
I think
we get
once
some
it's
context for that.
there is they already have a plan to come out. So the third one is to be determined. It's going to be called Exorcist Deceiver, the second one, and
Ah,
comes out next May, I believe.
oh, cool. Okay, so maybe we will get Catherine as like the demonic force or the
Mm,
face of the demonic force in the
right.
next one, or we'll get some kind of backstory for that because they didn't give us anything. And I did like though that instead of a Ouija board, they used a pendulum. So they chose a different medium of
Conveyance
yeah.
or
So yeah,
communication.
they chose a different medium of like how these girls got possessed. Like
But
out the woods, sticking with the devil and got possessed. Happens all the time.
I'm unfamiliar with the pendulum. I equate it with hypnosis more than possession. Is there something I'm missing? Do you know?
Well, I think, and part of this is like the reason it's so weird is that the Christian girl seemed to know more about uh this than the girl who wasn't religious at all. So
Hmm.
why did Catherine know how to use a pendulum to contact the dead?
Yeah, true.
But she probably saw it on TikTok. But
They could have
but
wrote that in
like
there. Yeah.
pendulums are used in like divination, and a lot of ghost hunting teams use them to like uh communicate with spirits and stuff. If you've ever watched any like ghost hunting shows.
I've seen it, but I've never seen the pendulum used. But I don't watch it all the time.
So a lot of times the only thing that they do with it is like they'll draw a circle and have yes on one side and no on the other side, and they'll hold the pendulum or suspend the pendulum with something,
Hmm.
and ask a question and watch it swing one way or the other.
Oh, okay.
Stuff like that. It's like a very simple device to kind of communicate with spirits, but um,
Is it kind of like the synchronizer?
it's not as good as the synchronizer because you can't actually see some inside somebody else's head
Oh, okay. All right.
without the synchronizer. So we have to wait for that to be invented. What are you drinking? You just opened something else.
Yeah, by Jake Wakefield. They're out of Florida, right? Yeah, Miami, Florida.
Yep.
It's called Heart to Heart. It's a West Coast IPA,
Yum.
and they got little manatees on it. I don't know.
That's actually really cute. That is adorable. I love that label art. That is
Heart
precious.
Heart to Heart. That's what it's called.
Precious. I love it. Yeah, but I mean that's I'm sure somebody will correct me on my knowledge of the pendulum as well, because that's just from memory and from
Ooh,
watching Dumb Ghost Hunters shows. So
this
if
is.
anybody knows anything about that, they can let me know, and I'll correct myself. I'll correct my knowledge.
I was not prepared for this beer. This got some fruit to it. I don't even know what it is. What I wanted to ask you about was the score, of the movie, because
Oh yeah, I thought that was really cool the way they tied the Tubular Bells theme
yes,
in
yep,
to that without just going full on like using the original score.
yeah,
Um, yeah, where it starts out slow and in a different key. It almost sounds like it's in a minor key, and
hmm.
then it sort of progresses to the point where you can recognize it. That
But
was pretty.
I like the instance where they used it where Victor was starting to come around to believing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they first started like with that little, the essence
Yeah,
of the song. And I'm like, oh, I recognize it right away. Like I got the chills, like I perked up. I'm
yeah.
like, ooh, here we go. I
Like
go,
there
and
it is. Here we go.
yeah, now we're in The Exorcist because they never used it in the other movies.
That's true. Did they not use it in Heretic?
I do not remember them
I
using it.
don't think they used it in Heretic.
They
I thought
definitely,
they used it briefly in the third one, but maybe not. I thought they used it briefly in the third one in the Exorcist scene.
I don't remember them using it. They
Maybe
could
they
have.
didn't. Maybe they didn't. Maybe that's all in my head. Maybe
They
I
def,
wanted them to use it.
Definitely didn't
They
use it in
never
the
did.
first one, or in the
Yeah.
in the prequels. In the
In the
prequels,
prequels, they didn't use it. It was a completely different,
yeah,
kind of almost lackluster score.
yeah, lack thereof,
Everything
yes.
about these movies is lackluster.
Yeah, but in this one when they brought it back, I'm like, oh, that's so fucking awesome. Then they brought it back again, and then of course at the end, during the end credits, they use it again, and it's such an iconic song. Like, why the fuck would not you use it? It's so good, and the way they used it, like you said, they just used it perfectly. They was subtle, came in, you didn't really notice it unless you're like a dork
Yeah.
like me.
Yeah. Well, it's like they took a page out of the new Star Wars handbook where, they drop in the various characters' theme songs when it's important.
Hmm.
Like when somebody's doing something real dark, you'll get just a little hint of Darth Vader's theme.
Yeah,
So
the march, yeah.
yeah. I thought that was really well done. Actually, that was a good element from this.
And then I guess one more thing I wanted to touch on was shoot, I knew I should have wrote it down. Yeah, I thought of it like 5 minutes ago when we were talking. I'm like, oh, let me remember to ask her, and then I totally forgot. Is there anything you wanted to bring up? I kind of been driving this whole thing.
Let me think here. So I have so many pages of notes that I'm not sure like if any of my thoughts are still relevant. I thought this movie was like I liked the patchworking of the different religions, but I also don't think that's realistic because I don't think that Presbyterian priest and the Catholic priest are going to agree to like work side by side with a root worker who is to them that's like pagan. And
Hmm.
they're I
Heresy.
think the Catholic priest would be like, you can't fight evil with evil and that's evil, like that's paganism. I don't think that necessarily would have been as friendly an interaction. Um and I
But she,
kept looking for the cut-ins. I kept looking for cut-ins of Pazuzu and we didn't get
mhm.
those, but we did get a cut-in of Reagan in the
Yes.
background of one scene.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah, we did. That was kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I think that this movie didn't give us as much of the slow descent into madness as the original because I think there was just time constraints. And
Yeah.
now you have two girls to show like their descent into like being fully possessed.
Hmm.
Um so hopefully if there is a director's cut, we get to see a little more of that. Like, what are they going through at home? What are their siblings going through? I want to see furniture flying around the room. Like, you walk in, when Victor goes and discovers, like, the other girl, Catherine, is possessed as well. When he walks into their home, everything is destroyed. Like, their house is all torn up. There's, like, the TVs on the ground. There's papers everywhere. There's clearly been some of that, like, telekinesis or like throwing things around, but we didn't get to see it, and I want to see it.
Yeah, all we saw was the mom in the kitchen with the other kids, and they're praying. The
Yeah,
dad's way like off on his own, not doing it. It's like they feel helpless, like they couldn't do
right.
anything.
Yeah,
Why not call someone to help you? Why not call the cops or the psychiatry ward or
yeah, and
someone?
and yeah, you would think like if they're gonna lean heavily into their faith, that they would have called their church
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and have some of their
or church
communities
advisors. Yeah,
come and help them out.
yeah,
But yeah, so that scene really, and Victor comes in like like what the fuck's going on here? I'll take charge. I'll help you guys out. I
right. Like
really
he's the
felt
proactive one who is
yeah.
dedicated to figuring this out.
Yeah, I didn't like the way that I didn't like the fact that they stabbed Chris McNeil's eyes out. I didn't like
I
that
thought it
at
was
all.
so unnecessary.
Yes,
So
right,
unnecessary, just
exactly.
for no reason.
Hmm.
Um, when that cross fell off the wall, I was really afraid that we were getting the like reboot of the stabbing scene
Yep.
from
So
the
was I.
original. And I'm glad that they didn't do that. I was like, I can't live through that again. I don't want to see it again. I don't want to see this. And so I'm glad that they didn't do that. But I think having her get her eyes stabbed out was just
She could have been attacked, maybe even stabbed, but they end up, resuscitating her and saving her. That would have been all right. But to poke her eyes out, I didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And it didn't like it didn't add anything to the story, kind of like you were saying
Yeah.
with the other ones. It could have been an attack, and she could have been in the hospital, maybe, half in, half out, and she could have
Yeah.
still delivered the same lines and with the same effect.
Yeah. And then what happens? Because the original movie, you have the investigator who's trying to investigate the death of Burt Dennings.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's trying to figure out, like, well, this is mysterious. How did this guy die? And then you have another death. But everything's ambiguous as far as the law is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is kind of like, oh, we can't prove that anything bad happened. But then you have all of these people involved in an exorcism. You have 2 chairs nailed to the floor with straps on them. So they obviously strapped some kids down. The police coming into this situation and finding a dead priest with his neck completely fully broken, and that these 2 girls have been strapped to the floor. Like, what happens?
Yeah.
In a modern context, what happens?
You would think that they would arrest the 2 males because they would have been the only ones strong enough to break a priest's neck.
Right. It's like, okay, somebody's going to jail at the end of this movie. Mm-hmm. This is not a happily ever after, oh, sorry, officers, an exorcism went wrong. Like, this is a true crime podcast waiting to happen. Somebody's going to jail.
And when they brought Angela in to the hospital for the second time after she had the seizure and everything, I thought they were going to arrest Victor because, like, they see all the cuts and everything on her. But then we realized later the on her back was already slashed "help me" from the original attack, or the original time that they found when they finally found the girls. I'm like, oh, okay, that's why, because she was already they already showed her with all the cuts. We didn't see it, but they already knew that she had them. I thought they were gonna get him for that and put him. I'm like,
yeah,
great.
Me too. I was like, okay, here comes social services, but
yep.
No.
Yeah, so they hid that from us. They hid a lot of stuff from us on purpose, though, to reveal later on, which I thought was very effective. I thought it was good writing.
Yeah, that did, like, I like having those questions of, like, where is this going? If we are going into a second movie, I like having those questions of, like, where is this going? And we do have those loose threads. If we don't get the second movie, it's going to be really frustrating. Or if the second movie doesn't answer any of the questions that we have, like, whose shoes are these?
I would like to know whose shoes are these. I would like him to explore a little of other types of exorcisms from other cultures, not just necessarily religions, but cultures too, like Haitian or, whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
Just because that's what they brought up. And someone, I think Chris McNeil, also brought up a Muslim exorcism. Like, let's see that.
See it.
I'm down.
I would love to see it. I would love to know more about that and see it on screen. Yeah, I think that would be really, really cool. Like, let's not just do a bunch of different types of Christian stuff. Like, if we're going to do it, let's really do it. Like, let's delve into it. And hopefully they research that very well and, like, get those things right.
I could see Victor, because he's a photographer, maybe someone gets him and he goes international, and then they can, that's how they would tie in with the first one.
Oh, yeah, that could be. That would be, we should write this movie. We should just go ahead.
One of these days, you and I are going to write a movie, I think.
Yes, we are going to write a colossal, scary movie with horror comedy elements, and there will probably be a bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense for like inside jokes for no reason.
Lots of craft beer all over the place.
Right. Yeah. Just like craft beer cameos, with, like, cans sitting in the background.
Oh, there you go. I mean, we have a brewery that's haunted, a haunted brewery.
Yes, a haunted brewery. I know where there is one we can go to.
It's like, I thought I brewed a saison. Well, how come this is a lager? What's going on here?
No, it's spooky. I went to Ohio recently, and I went to Mansfield, which is where the Ohio State Reformatory is. And I did that whole tour, and that's where Shawshank was filmed.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, so I did the Shawshank tour. I got totally Shawshanked, And then that place is really scary. But that's like a conversation for another time. But I went to the Phoenix Brewing, which is in Mansfield, like downtown area.
Yeah.
And it's in what was an old mortuary services building. And from like 1914, I believe, is when it was open, and then it was in business for like several years, and then the building was completely abandoned for like 80 years or so before this brewery took it over. And when they were taking it over, like when they're renovating, they found a bunch of bones in the basement.
Oh.
And the bones were never identified. Like, you know, they went through the whole process. The bones were never identified, and they were buried. And the brewery has a couple of beers. They have one called John Doe, one called Jane Doe, and one called Juan Doe. After it just to honor the bones of the people that were found in like what is now, they have like a little speakeasy area down there. And they used the service elevator that was used to take the bodies down as like their storage.
Ooh. This is fucking cool. Like this is writing in itself.
Their brewing equipment is in what used to be the embalming space. Yeah.
This is fucking awesome.
It's so cool, and the place is supposed to be super haunted. Everybody that works there has a story or several stories about things that happened to them. There's one ghost that apparently will correct problems in your brewing process for you, or will let you know that something isn't right.
Huh.
So, yeah. So it's a really, really cool, really, really cool little place. If you ever get the chance. If you're ever just randomly in Ohio.
I was in Ohio last year, actually. I was in Cleveland, though.
Well, yeah, that's quite a haul up.
Yeah.
So,
right.
But if you get the chance, definitely go up there and check it out. It's really cool. The whole area is really cool. The whole town. There's a lot of history.
That's pretty awesome. All right, Amanda, thank you so much for taking time talking with me about the Exorcist. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was so great. We haven't done this in a while, so I was really looking forward to it.
Me too. All right. Well, thank you so much, and cheers.